Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, Podderoonies, or Podsters if you prefer. This week, as the final installment of the Indiana Jones franchise is finally here with Dial of Destiny. I am personally very excited for this one. And of course, we'll be talking Indiana Jones films. No surprises there. And it's very exciting this week. We have guests, Sam and Calum from One of Us is Bored podcast. It's amazing to have you on. Hello, guys.
Hi, thanks for having us on.
Hi there. Thank you for having us. Yes, this is great. Great to be here.
Good. Unfortunately, Boaz couldn't be with us today, so we will get less terrible jokes from him, so that's a positive. Guys, Calum and Sam, tell us about your podcast and where can we find you?
So our podcast was originally pitched as the sort of, what were we? We were the like professional.
We're the unprofessional podcast, yeah.
Basically, yeah. So we met in university when we were studying, and during our entire time at university, we tried a few different creative endeavors. We tried doing some YouTube stuff. We did some little bit of, like filmy stuff. Never once did we think, let's put our film degree to some kind of use as we go and do a film podcast or something. No, that came much later. Like several years after graduating, did we decide to actually maybe that might be a good idea. So here we are in current year, 2023. We've been doing the podcast since January 2021. So we've been going a couple of years, and it's expanded a little way since then as well. We've started doing some small filmmaking things, and I'm going to say it, Sam. I'm going to say it. We are an award-winning creative duo. We actually won an award for our as part of our short film production, Robin the Magic Con, which was submitted for the Edinburgh 48-hour film contest earlier this year, so we are officially award winners. Just saying. No, it's not a brag, it's a fact.
Right in the CV.
Yes.
Yeah, me and Boaz have done a few 48-hour competitions way back for our like local art centre. Didn't win. I think it was probably our films were probably too dark. Because it's supposed to be like family friendly, but we didn't really
ours weren't.
Take notice of that.
I think these things are always really hard to kind of grasp the correct tone for in some ways as well. And I think as well, the way they're structured, if you're going into them with a bigger team, you're almost guaranteed to have some greater level of success in some ways just because you've got more resources and things. So not saying that our win is more meaningful because we are such a small team of just 2 people, but we're very, very proud of that. And so anyway, just to link that back to the podcast itself, our actual podcast itself, we probably for the last year or so now specifically have done themed months. So every month we'll have some kind of theme behind them. So just in June, just now, we've just finished doing our World Cinema Month just before we go on our little summer hiatus. But previous months have included the Jeff Goldblum month. We've done Pokemon month. We've done several video game adaptation months. There's all sorts of things in there. So
you forgot November.
The November film series of films about nuns. So yes, that was a classic. So yeah,
everyone loved that one.
Everyone loved it. So yeah, there's something there for everyone. And the last thing I would say is that we are former film students, graduated film students, but we try and approach our podcast in a way that's maybe a little bit more accessible. So for me personally, I think that a lot of content creators, whether they're YouTubers or sometimes whether they're podcasters, I think that sometimes they're a bit jargony, and I think they maybe exclude your average person who's maybe, you know, there to have just a good time rather than to get into the like super nitty gritty about, you know, more technical stuff. There's a place for technical stuff, of course, but if you're looking for that, we ain't that. So,
all right. Yeah. Well, you know, we're a bit technical sometimes, but you know, we enjoy that.
Yes, we're stretching ourselves to be here. Yeah,
we have a balance of that and funny and stuff. So, yeah, we've done like video game adaptations once. Was it Resident Evil versus Sonic the Hedgehog? That was a fun one to do.
What a crossover!
What an obvious crossover.
Back in the day. So, Dial of Destiny, then. Thoughts on this? Are we excited for this one? Trepidatious? What do you reckon?
First off, it was filmed here, so I'm excited to see bits of Glasgow.
Oh, nice.
But it's funny, because before I've not watched the trilogy, the original trilogy, in the longest time. It's been years. So I wasn't excited until I watched them, and I was like, oh, you know, actually, maybe I will go see this in the cinema. Like, kind of, yeah. I'm excited now. Crystal Skull has made me a bit worried, but we don't count that. There's no Shia LaBeouf in this one, so it's fine. It's fine. We'll be fine.
Thank you.
How about you, Calum?
So I never saw the Crystal Skull. That was what, like late 2000s, that one?
2008.
2008, that was going to be my guess. Should have just went for it and said it. I knew that. Yeah, I never saw that. I'm honestly... The two that we'll be talking about for this are the two I'm most familiar with, I have to say. Like, it's something I've always been aware of, in the sense that there are some franchises that, even if you don't know them particularly well, that they exist in the background. I suppose a good example for me, and this will turn all your listeners off us right away, is Star Wars for me. I'm aware of it, but I haven't really seen any of them. So like, they're not like, but you can't escape them as a cultural force. Like, even if you aren't familiar with them, you still know about them, and you'll still know like a bunch of the characters and stuff. Indiana Jones for me kind of falls into that category, although less so. I was aware of, I watched Temple of Doom a lot as a kid, and actually probably the Last Crusade as well. As a kid, I'm quite familiar with, but haven't really seen any of them for a long time. So this was a nice exercise in revisiting some nostalgia for me.
Just for people who want to see our podcast, I have watched Star Wars and I do enjoy Star Wars, so don't let him put you on.
Yeah.
I can't let that stand.
Yeah, it's important to confirm that.
Yeah, I have seen it. And Lord of the Rings as well. Calum's missed all the big franchises.
That's fine.
Distance yourself from me now. I have seen Glitter, you know, Mariah Carey's Glitter, so, you know, I'm not all bad.
Glitter.
I am pretty excited for this one. It's interesting that James Mangold is directing and not Steven Spielberg, so that, I don't know. Yes, I really like James Mangold's movies, but it could just feel a bit weird, you know, seeing an indie film without Spielberg. I think just one thing that just very much concerns me about this new film is the fact that just his age, like, how are they going to make like these action scenes convincing?
Yeah.
You know, how is that going to work? You know, I've seen the trailers. So.
Well, they already did that with Crystal Skull. Like, he was, you know, the whole thing was, oh, I'm aged. It's like, well, now you're super aged.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, the joke's already been done. That's the thing. You never kind of want to see your heroes get old. That's why I'm always a bit skeptical about like sequels that are really far in the distance from the originals. You're like, oh, do you want to see Indiana Jones like struggling to swing? You know what I mean? Like,
there's something to be said for bowing out gracefully. Like, you know, like you've had your moment, and like those films are, to an extent, they're culturally untouchable in some ways, and anything that comes after that, if it doesn't do them justice, it can potentially soil the legacy somewhat. So, you know, I don't know. I think being skeptical is a very valid position to have.
But Calum, George Square will be in it.
That's true.
We actually walked through. Remember, so last summer was, or the summer before, obviously, we walked through the sets. That's when it was all Americanized.
Oh, of course, yes, yeah.
Oh, nice.
It looked really cute.
Yeah, they changed the sides of the buildings to be like, was it the Bank of America or something like that, or the Bank of New York or something like that. So like we got to see bits and pieces set up just by wandering through the town. It was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison Ford wasn't here, but you know, whatever.
Well, they often do that, don't they, in films? Glasgow is doubled for New York. Was it World War Z? I've done that.
Any skaggy place. It was meant to be Gotham City too, but like, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you choose for Indiana Jones films?
We decided to go with the Temple of Doom. And my main incentive for this, I'll let Sam give your thoughts on this. You can give your thoughts in a second. But my main incentive was it was the one that I most remembered from my childhood.
Sure.
But the funny thing is, as I watched it for this, there were parts that I strongly remembered really well, but there were other bits I had clearly either forgotten or not understood as a child. So like there were parts of it that were quite I wouldn't say shocking as such, but like I was getting to see it almost with kind of brand new eyes or whatever, because I need to express the extent to which I hadn't seen this for such a long time. Like genuinely, I am the world's worst film student. Like it's true. So yeah, but that for me, that was what pushed it for me. It was the one I was most familiar with. How about you, Sam? Was that your kind of, or were you just happy to go?
Yeah. For me, there wasn't a bad choice other than the obvious. So I was like, it's whatever one. I think Temple of Doom's the one I've watched the most because I really like a middle film in a franchise because you can just hop in. There's no backstory to Temple of Doom, really. It's just, let's just go on an adventure. Whereas the other two, there's a lot more like learning about the characters, which is good if you like that. And I do like that. But sometimes it's just fun to just hop into the middle of chaos and just enjoy it. And it's one you can watch without having to watch the other two. Whereas I feel like if you commit to, you have to watch like Crystal Skull or you have to watch the other, the first one to get into it, probably get all the backstory. Whereas Temple of Doom's just go. Yeah. Also, I love the kid. I know it's maybe controversial, but... and the opening sequence. Like, who doesn't love a little musical number?
Yeah. I mean, the end sequence as well. I feel like this one is so action heavy. It's just kind of great. And I agree what you're saying, Sam, that this one's not really connected to any of the others. It's the most like pure in terms of action for me. Yes, it's very much very dark at times, but I love all of them other than the fourth one, obviously. Yeah, I found this very difficult to choose ours after you chose Temple of Doom. It's very much a coin flip.
Yeah.
So guys, what happens in Temple of Doom? A short synopsis, please.
Callum, you do those. That's your job.
Oh, thank you very much. So the Temple of Doom, they're starting off in Shanghai. He's sort of infiltrated this, I guess what would you call it? Is it like a casino / showroom, nightclub, whatever is going on there? Yeah. He manages to subvert, excuse me, try again in English, shall I? Manages to survive a murder attempt from the crime boss there. I think his name was it Lao She? I'll just go with that. If I'm butchering that, please. Yeah. Please forgive me. And what ensues from here is he takes his what would we call this? The American nightclub singer Willie Scott, who manages to escape with him, and they go on the run, and they're trying to.
You've forgotten Short Round, the most important character.
Well, he saves them once they've escaped to the building. But that's a very, very rapid introduction to that category, to that character at that point there.
He's like, "Hello, I'm here to save the day."
In summary, the film takes us away from China, across the world, to an Indian village, where the villagers plead with Jones to retrieve the sacred stolen stone from their village. Now, there's a whole bunch of mythos here about how the stones were given by the Hindu gods to help humanity fight evil. And I think this is, to some extent, it's deemed as being mythological village fairy tales that the children are told to kind of keep them well behaved. And the film goes on to show us that maybe that's not entirely the case. So there you go.
And then we go into a Temple of Doom.
The so-called, Temple of Doom from the title of the film. So, yeah.
I'm really glad that I didn't have to do that, because when I listened to you talk about it, I was like, it is a really convoluted plot for, an action film. You're just, when all you're doing is following them, going on a journey, it is like, the hell's happening?
Well, I'm not going to confess, that made me sweat a bit. I think I did a shit job at that, but we're here now, so we'll go with it.
It's all right.
But most people have seen the film, so I think you get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, hopefully so.
So, initial reactions to this one then, guys? What did you think, like, the first time you saw this? If you can think back that far.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
So the very first time that I saw this, it's funny because I think this is one of those films that I associate heavily with Christmas, not because of its content, but because it's the sort of thing that was always shown on TV around about Christmas.
Definitely. For me, it was very much like a, almost like a tradition. Like the Indiana Jones films are always on Christmas, and I always had to watch it, even though they're on. Even though I've seen them many times, I'm like, it's on TV though. Yeah. I gotta watch it.
Totally, and I think that's why for me my memory of it was somewhat bitty, because you do, even if it's on TV, you're channel flipping. I mean, for me, I grew up with like 4 channels, 5 channels, so you join it halfway through and it's on, and then you stick with it, sort of thing. But I remember finding it very like entertaining as a child, even if I wasn't necessarily understanding of every single element that was taking place. I think there's actually quite a lot in there for children to enjoy. I was reading that there was some criticism at the time for this being a little bit darker in contrast to the previous film, and I can completely understand that to some extent. But I think I sometimes think children aren't necessarily as how do I put this?
Aware of what they're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, how a funny man removes heart from other man. Isn't that like yuck? Silly lady scared of snakes, like, I don't know. I think there's a lot in there that children can actually laugh at, even if that's not maybe the intention at the time is maybe for that. So I don't know. I remember enjoying this as a kid. What about you, Sam? What was your kind of...
So I watched this, well, first off, I'll just say my dad's really into Harrison Ford. Not in that way, but he loves Harrison Ford films. So I watched Star Wars, was obsessed with Star Wars, and then my dad said, hey, Han Solo is in this one by himself. And I was like, I don't know about that, because, Luke has to be there too, but it's fine. I think I watched Temple of Doom first. I don't know why, probably for the reasons that I said earlier, that it was just one you can hop into, and I loved it. I was obsessed with that for a while, and then how that you get that way when you're so obsessed with something, you then don't watch it for a very long time. So, like you've overwatched it. I would watch it on repeat every night, and then I was like burnt off. That's how I was a weird child, and a weird adult too. But I don't remember it being that dark. Yeah, I think when I watched it, as you said, Calum, I was shocked. Some of the stuff happening on the screen, I'm like, wow, can't remember that. Can't remember someone gets squished by a roller. Like some of the ways people die in it is so grim.
It's pretty grim, yeah. So directing then, like the opening musical number is pretty cool with like Kate Capshaw, but I always find it funny when like the chorus girls show up and I'm like, where is this?
The stage not big enough.
Like the club must be massive. There must be like a private members club on the floor below. But I love how like Spielberg like ups the tension in like a fun way with the diamond deal by using like the turntable, using the tighter shots.
Oh, the Lazy Susan.
Yeah. Like the creativity of the action is brilliantly entertaining, where the antidote and the diamond just get kicked around in all the excitement. Just a great, funny like idea where Indy is looking for the antidote and Willie is looking for the diamond. And I love the moment where an ice bucket gets knocked over and hides the diamond, and Willie's like, no. And I loved how Indy and Willie escape by cutting free like the massive gong, and it rolls away, and they use it as cover from the gunfire. And I feel like that's pure Indiana Jones action for me. And the car chase is fairly standard, but like the last stunt where Indy and Co like glide on the air on this rubber dinghy, I can slightly buy that, but then when they fall off a massive cliff into a river, which seems from a higher height, I wasn't so sure about that. But
wait, so you can suspend your disbelief for falling out of a plane and landing on the snow perfectly, but when it comes to falling off a waterfall in a boat, you're like, nah.
The line has been crossed.
No, that's too much for me. You okay with that then, Sam? you buy all that?
Indiana Jones, like, the more, like, when I was watching him, I was like, these are ridiculous. I don't know why Crystal Skull got so much, flack for being a bit ridiculous, because these are also, like...
Yeah, they do stretch, reality.
Yeah.
I'm happy to spend my disbelief for anything, though. I'm like, yeah cool,
disbelief.
do it, dude. Freedom fridge, let's go.
It's usually me that picks the holes in the films in ours. I'm like, that's not very realistic. And it's like, well, it's a film about fucking...
And I'll just explain it away.
mythical stone. I'm not really going to question.
Well, it's not your culture, is it, Callum? You can't.
Well, there you go. I'm sorry. But I do like that opening sequence, for me at least, again, having not seen that in God knows how many years, I was kind of sat there wondering, well, how are they going to get out of this exactly? And it's so fast paced, and a lot of the decisions that are made, and you're going to hand over the stone, and now you've drank the poison. Oh, you want the antidote? Haha! Like, it's such quick back and forth.
Yeah.
And then as you go towards the escape from the building as well, then you're in the car, and as you say, soon enough you're off to the. It's so quick.
Yeah, but you learn the characters so much in that quick sequence, though.
Yeah,
like, you understand who Willie is, you understand who Short Round is instantly. Like they manage to convey them, so you don't need to learn anymore.
No, I think that's probably the sign of that kind of scene done pretty well in that respect. Having said that, there was one questionable bit where
here you go.
So they're going to this time to pick some holes, everyone.
Sure.
So they were going to the plane, and it was just this one like kind of side character's bit of exposition. He was just like, "Heavens, aren't you Willie Scott, the famous American vocalist?" And I was just like, "That's some fucking forced exposition right there." Like, if you don't know she's famous already, like I just assumed she was a club singer. I didn't know she was meant to be.
Me too.
So there you go. Apparently she's fucking world famous or whatever. But just the way, like, see, that sort of thing's a little bit forced. But it gives you, I suppose, it tells you all you need to know in a very quick amount of time. There are ways around that, though. I suppose we could have found out that maybe she was a bigger deal through like posters on the wall or something like that. Like, like you don't necessarily need to ram it in there with slightly awkward dialogue.
I thought that guy was just flattering her.
Well,
yeah, or they could have worked it in the dialogue earlier when they're in the club. Or,
yeah, who knows?
But I love when the plane door closes and you see the bad guy's name on the door. Yeah. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that is great.
But just to quickly, just the last thing that you said there, Sam, you were like, you find out everything you need to know about the characters in that scene. I think that is evidence of a sequence or a sequence of sequences done right, because they are it's quite rapid fire, and you would actually be quite easy to leave key information for your audience out in that way. Like, so we don't know an awful lot about Short Round, for example, at that point, but you very quickly gather that him and Indiana have a previous kind of connection for some way or whatever. So you just go along with it. The way that I suppose he's a bit of a smart talker, but like you don't kind of get that without engaging with sort of others around you and adapting that kind of thing. So it's just like the characters are just the dialogue rather is quite well written in this. And I just think,
absolutely,
I feel like they did a good job for that opening part there.
And they established Willie's being a really irritating shrieker.
Yeah.
You're going to have this throughout the entire film. And you know what? I don't even mind, because she does get her comeuppance enough,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the booby trap chamber scene. Like, the scene itself is very simple, really. Like, Indy and Short Round get trapped in the chamber, and the ceiling is slowly going to squish them, and Willie just has to pull a lever to let them out. That's it, really. But I think why it's great is the fact that John Williams really comes into his own here with the suspenseful music. Like, the editing is perfectly done with keeping the pace up in a fairly static scene. But my favorite bits are probably where Harrison Ford does his amazing like hand acting through the hole, where it's almost done like a jump scare, where Willie tries to put her hand through a hole, and it's filled with creepy crawlies, but Indy catches her hand all of a sudden and says, "Your other right." Yes. Then later he puts his hand through the hole again for no reason, and clenches his fist, saying, "Do it now. We are going to die." And I think it brings like brilliant humor in a high intense scene. Then when Indy quickly grabs the hat, that's always a great iconic moment that's been riffed on many times.
Definitely. I think it's worth saying at that point as well, just the design of some, not all I would say, but some of the sets, and that one included, I think that looks great, that bit. Just the actual, the stonework and the tunnel of, you know, creepy crawlies that they're walking through and all of that. I think that stuff looks great. There is not to jump ahead too much, but I don't think I would say the same necessarily of the scene where they are watching the man be lowered down into the lava pit below after he's had his heart removed.
Right.
I do feel like that set looks, and I don't know exactly how to put it. I don't know if it's because of some of the lighting on it, but I feel like you can tell that's a set in some ways.
It looks like a stage.
It does, yeah.
Because it's, you know, have you been to Disneyland where they have the Indiana Jones like stunt show? It looks like a set from that.
Yeah,
you know.
It's weird how it does flip between the two, and I suspect to some extent, I mean, you know, take a step back from a controversial statement. It is a film, so none of this is real. but it gets it right, like often enough that when it doesn't quite get it right, it feels slightly jarring for me.
Well, it's because they have so many people to flood in there. Like seeing that one, you like it's only 3 of them interacting in the space, but in that one they have like thousands of kids, thousands of men, you know, tons of things going on, so you kind of need it.
Yeah,
it's very stagey anyway, so I guess you get that kind of set feeling anyway, the fact that it is a stage in itself. So
yeah, I think there is a real skill though to making like a trap door that, you know, is meant to look like hard stone coming down and make it look like it would be heavy, which they succeed in doing, or the rolling, you know, as you say, your earlier set piece with the rolling metal bit that they're hiding behind, and make that look weighty, because we all know that that's going to be made of foam or something in reality, but it looks like it's got some weight to it. So yeah, I think you're right. I think there's maybe something to the size of the sets and how many people that are on them, which would maybe also. But, you know, who am I to critique? But you know what I mean.
Critique away.
The way they have Willie act in there as well, like, it's more realistic, because the other women in the Indiana Jones franchise kind of go with the stuff too much. Like, they're seeing horrific things, they're seeing corpses and, you know, all sorts. And they're
that's
just like,
fine.
Just fine to me is, let's just go. Yeah. Whereas she I would be shrieking too. I wouldn't want to put my hand in a thing.
Yeah.
There's 2 dead people in here.
There's going to be 2 in here. Yeah. Brilliant.
As you mentioned, Callum, the sacrifice scene is kind of as dark as it comes in Indiana Jones films, where the bad guy just sinks his hands into the guy's chest and pulls his heart out, and it's all bloody and beating. And then there's a shot of the chest closing up again. And I don't think I've ever seen that, because I've always seen this film, like, you know, the UK version on DVD or on TV, and they always cut that out.
Do they?
Yeah, they've always cut that. So that was quite a surprise seeing it for this podcast on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I must say I didn't quite remember it being like that. But then again, like, I'm not very, like, it's been a very long time for me. So like I did remember the heart going in, but like I didn't quite remember it being like a forcing the hand in type thing and the way that it was. So that was quite interesting to see. It's funny though, because for such a, I suppose, inherently violent action, there's not actually a lot of gore to go along with it, which I suppose is their way of maybe keeping the age rating down at the time. I don't know, I'm just projecting. But
well, there's a controversy with that. This is what created PG-13, or at least helped to make PG-13. But you know what's funny? I like how she's seen that happen, like, and then later on, the guy reaches for Indiana Jones's chest. She's like, "Cover your heart," as if like this is going to stop that.
Yeah, go for your hand as well, probably. But yeah, I mean, that scene, you definitely see the real darkness come through. Like, when Indiana Jones like swings down, you see like severed limbs hanging on the statue of Carly, and there's a shot where you see like skinned humans in the windows, and then literally the next scene after that, you see, you know, children as slaves being beaten.
Yeah, that's pretty grim.
So it's as dark as it comes in an Indiana Jones film. It's quite extraordinary that they accepted that, really. I love the cart chase on the tracks through the tunnels. I think it still holds up today for me. Like, the combination of the camera like attached to the carts and the great miniature work, you really feel the speed of how fast they're going. Like, it's creative enough without feeling too ridiculous. Like, the way the track splits into 2 and Short Round is hanging between 2 carts is fun, but I love the fact that Willie actually saves the day, where she punches one of the goons and takes out another cart full of goons. then obviously you have the rope bridge scene, which is brilliant for the climax of the film because it's just crazy.
Yeah.
They did that. And obviously it just brings up the scale of for the end, it's huge scale. Huge stakes.
Definitely. I was just going to say, I love that scene's kind of legitimized in the first place as well, because they are told, to get out, is it go left? Is that you need to go left, and then they don't. Yeah. So that kind of leads on to that. So it's not just a cart chase for the sake of a cart chase. Like, there was a reason for us going into the mines in this way.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's a lot of fun.
It'd be such a good ride, wouldn't it? It's surprising that that's not a ride.
Well, you say this. I went to Universal Studios in 1997, I think it would have been, and there was an Indiana Jones ride that I went on then. And
but it wasn't a roller coaster in a cart.
No,
it was a slow ride.
It was a slow ride, but you were inside. You went like through a tomb and stuff, and there was a giant snake at one point. And
yeah, but I want to go through a fast cart.
Oh, a fast cart! Like
I want to be getting chased by water. I want the full experience.
Like an actual roller coaster.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Like that and the Monsters Inc. doors is the two things I always thought should have been a fast ride. Do you know what I mean by the Monsters Inc. bit where they're like climbing from door to door? Yeah.
And they get, for the Indiana Jones one, they give you a wetsuit or something. Like before you go, and I'm like, why do I need a wetsuit?
Like Valhalla and Blackpool. Yeah, you're like, what?
Like, no, this is going to be exactly like the movie, people. I reckon they could do that with technology of today. They really could.
Yeah, especially in Disney. Like, if they want, go for it.
I mean, does the effects, does it still look good to you? The cart chase?
Because it's like mostly, I know, like there's parts where you're like, where they're in the cart and you can see the background moving. You're like, this is a bit questionable, but that's fine. Okay. But I think because they use more practical and they do CGI for things in these, in Indiana Jones films. I think there's a lot of things that can be forgiven because it's endearing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's charming.
I think as well. Yeah. I've found this the more things we've watched for our podcast is that I'm increasingly a fan of practical effects where practical effects can be used, just because we've seen so many films from maybe even as recently as the past decade where, up to now the CGI just doesn't hold up.
There's a sense that it's getting worse as well, that animators are being severely overworked.
Yeah, and it's you never know how these things are going to age, but practical effects, generally speaking, I think will always age a little bit better as long as they're done well in the first place.
Absolutely.
So I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
So, favorite shots or scenes, people? What are you going for?
The one of my favorite sequences, and this is such one that no one will go for. Like, if you were to take a poll of 100 people, no one would pick this one. But I think it's the sequence where Willie is running around screaming and shouting while the two boys are playing cards, and accusing each other of cheating. I think that is just so much fun. It's the kind of the eye rolls and the ignoring of her, basically.
Yes,
does it for me. It is just such comic genius, and I think it's a nice little bit of levity after you've had your intense car chase and your plane crash and your boat jumping out the falling out the plane and then down the river. We've had quite an intense time of things up to that point, and I think it's just a nice tension breaker. So that's definitely up there for me, 100%.
Yeah, same. That is the one.
I would say, though, having said that, the whole sequence of them escaping the plane into the boat and then the boat going into the cliff, I actually really, really like that one as well. As ridiculous as it is, I think that is up there for me as like a standout moment from the whole thing as well. So those would be my two picks, I would say, actually, to be honest.
Sam?
Yeah, I think the jungle one's slightly better. Like, the jungle sequence is my absolute favorite. It's just so chaotic. Like, she's just like losing her mind and they just don't care. They're just so over her.
It's fine if she dies. It's fine. We don't need it.
Yeah, they're like, whatever, just let her squeal. But those two, it shows their chemistry as well. Like, they both cheat. They're both like, he treats them as an equal, even though he's a child. Maybe that's a bad thing, but it's explained.
I think for me, my favorite moment is, from a directional point of view, is I love the moment when Indy decides to save all the children in the mines, and the camera whips up quickly to reveal Indy in half silhouette, and then the next shot is a nice long push in on his face. Then the reverse angle of Indy punching a bad guy, and all you hear is him do it, and you just see the bad guy slide along the floor. That was so cool.
Yeah,
very powerful.
I also enjoy the chanting in the hall, because I like the idea that the bad guys have got a chanting team, and their whole job is to go whoa whenever there's a sacrifice happening, and they survive in the end because they continue doing that on the bridge. Do they have to audition for the chanting team? Who knows? Like, what if you had one guy out of key?
Yeah, I know.
It's just really
Yeah.
lucky.
Oh,
So, directing score for me, yeah, I think it's just really well done from Spielberg. It's, as I said, it's very much like the purest action film out of in the franchise. It's just really entertaining. So I think I'll go like an 8.7 for me. How about you guys?
I'd be inclined to go for a 9, Sam. What do you think?
I think a 9. Well, should we go for a 9?
Let's just go for 9.
a nice even 9.
Sure, you can use decimals if you want.
No,
That's too complicated for us.
Yeah, we're very basic, so we're very basic.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because I would question, like, wouldn't we just get into a big debate about the difference between 9.4 and 9.6?
Yeah,
like,
we'd be like, what's the difference?
9 is fine.
Let's not ruin our friendship. Let's. Yeah, 9's good. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, there's always room for improvement, so it's not a 10. But
You're saying it to Spielberg?
yeah, I know. Here's what you could have done better, sir. No. I would be reluctant to give a 10, but to be honest, like it's just a 9. 9's great.
So well done, yeah.
So screenplay then. It's interesting with the setup here where Indy is translating what the leader of the village is saying and what happened to the village, and that this evil Sankara has destroyed the village and they stole all their children. So Indy is obviously very concerned by it. Then one of the kids comes back to the village and Indy catches him before he falls over. But then he finds like a piece of parchment from the kid confirming like the stones that were stolen were Sankara stones. So then like Short Round runs ahead and says to Indy, like, the boy escaped from the evil palace and other children are still there. And Short Round says, what shall we do? What do you think? And Indy just says, I think that somebody believes the good luck rock from this village is one of the lost Sankara stones. Then Short Round says, what is Sankara? And then Indy just says, fortune and glory, kid. Fortune and glory. So I feel like Indy's motivations in the beginning are very like questionable for a hero. Like, he can't think that he doesn't believe that all these kids were taken because he just saw a kid fall into his arms. So morally for Indy, it's a bit murky. And in the end, he learns the true power of the stones and he decides to get all the children out. It's just, I feel like Indy's mindset is too ambiguous about what he thinks happened to the village for me. I mean, do you guys agree with that, or are you fine with it? Or is it Hanway for you?
I would say that that's the kind of appeal to Indiana Jones for me, is that he's morally ambiguous throughout it. Like, his entire role is he's going to other countries and taking things that are precious to that country and bringing it back to America to show in a museum. Like, that's a pretty questionable thing he's doing anyway, and I'm fine with that. I accept him as he is. He's cool. But I would say my problem with the screenplay is that it is overcomplicated for what's on screen. Do you know what I mean? I want to just see him in the temple. I don't really care about hearing different... I understand why he's saying that it's part of his character, but it is explained to us in such a way that it is just like a lecture. Mm-hmm. We're just getting lectured about what this is. We're being told rather than showed. Basically is my problem. What about your Calum? What's your thoughts?
Well, I wonder if the village and their missing children aren't actually given possibly the prominence that they should. So we're told, oh, this is really important and, you know, this is devastating and we need to go and save them. But we're in the village for a total of what, maybe 4 minutes or something like that.
Not long.
There's not really, I'm purely speaking for myself, not the audience as a whole, but I didn't get the emotional connection that I think was maybe needed to... Cause I say this, people are going to be thinking, are you fucking kidding? Like, there's a child almost dies in his arms and like the mother is crying and all the people are like, help us. That's fine and all, but it felt like a very kind of secondary element to me. I feel like in some ways it would be much either you need to spend more time for us to find out more about the village, which actually would slow things right the hell down, or it's maybe not that key a part of the story. And I feel like this would maybe be stronger if we were following a morally ambiguous character trying to break into the Temple of Doom, as you put it, for whatever reason, his own reasons or for someone else's, and maybe just having a bit more of a kind of, I suppose, magnificent kind of grand adventure death-defying escapes through that. I don't know necessarily that the village element adds a lot for me. I just have to say,
maybe he could just find the children there. Like, we don't even need to know about the village. We could just happen to be, he finds the temple. He's heard about the stone, not through the village. He's just heard about the stone. And the children happen to be there, and he decides to save them while he's in there.
Yeah.
Like, you don't necessarily need to have the goal be to find the kids, because that's just not something, that's just not his job. He's an archaeologist.
No.
He's not like a savior of the villages. You know what
I think for me, the problem is the fact that the proximity between like the kid falling in his arms and then deciding, we're going to just go after these stones for fortune and glory. It's just too close together. There's not a lot in between those moments, which just is very questionable for me.
I know, obviously, I don't want to jump ahead and start talking about our next film before we're there either, but the thing is, there's a huge change in his own character between those two moments as well. So we see him as a teenager being like, this belongs in the museum, you can't take this. And then we have him here chasing fortune and glory. So obviously, and I'm not saying that people can't change as they get older, because clearly they do, but that's some fucking change in character motivation right there between the two. So
yeah, but he wants it in the museum because he wants the fortune and glory of putting it in the museum. He doesn't want to take the thing and sell it. He wants to give it to the museum so he gets fortune and glory. Like, I think that's still the same thing.
It's not. It's yes and no. Like, I don't know. It's still a benefit for himself. So he's not, I don't know that as a kid he was thinking about, like, I'm going to get fortune and glory from this. He was just like, these people are stealing this, therefore that's bad.
Well, maybe the hat.
Yeah, maybe the hat did it. Yeah.
Maybe the hat has a curse of fortune and glory and he plopped it on his head because it's obviously the evil guy's hat. The hat has made him now hunting for fortune and glory. There we go. I have fixed it.
Then I feel like in the dinner table scene, they're kind of like in Bangkok Palace, they're kind of like backtracking a little bit and making his morals a bit more, straightforward, because he's questioning that. I've heard that, there's missing children, and I feel like that needed to be done in the script. But it's interesting that Indy's questioning is contrasted with like the disgusting scenes you always get in Indiana Jones films. Here, it's the questionable menu, where it's played for humor with Willie and Short Round. So I feel like the contrast is there to like soften the film a little bit, because it is quite dark for an adventure film. So the dark tone doesn't get out of control in that scene.
It's funny how he doesn't mind snakes when they're like food snakes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's like meant to be scared of snakes, but then there's a snake that's dead and he cut it and he's fine with it.
Aren't they like eels though, or something?
Are they? But there's a big snake that like comes out of, is it not?
They look like eels to me.
Oh, they come out of the snake.
But it's dead though. It is dead.
Yeah.
Either way.
A food snake is fine.
A food snake is fine.
I love the second sacrifice scene where Indy is under this Kali trance after he drinks the evil blood. You're like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this. Willie's going to get burnt alive. Indy is usually the hero. So I love the fact that Short Round gets a cool moment to be a hero in this moment. When Short Round says, Indy, I love you. You're my best friend. And it always catches me off guard. They seem to have like an okay relationship up until this moment in the writing, but I still love it. It's just really adorable. And I always feel like seeing a character confessing a friendship love sort of thing is sometimes more emotional. I think there's enough chemistry there for the moment to work, and I love the moment where they fight together in a few shots and Short Round mimics Indy fighting the bad guys too. It's just a really sweet moment in kind of a dark movie.
Yeah, no, it's them that hold it together, like Short Round and Indy relationship. Like, you don't really care about Willie and Indy's, like you never do with Indiana Jones. You don't really care about the girl and the guy. You're like, whatever, just part of it. But Short Round and Indy's relationship is so sweet, it's so cute.
Do you ever get like taken aback in that moment a little bit when he says, I love you, Indy? Or was it just, it's fine?
So, well, no, I was more taken aback by the fact that I was doing some maths just now.
Right.
I think Harrison Ford was in his 40s at this point, his early 40s, it has to be said.
Yeah.
But like, that's some fucking, body goals. Be looking like that in your 40s.
Oh, he's stunning.
Like, holy shit.
Are we allowed to talk about this? Like, Harrison Ford was gorgeous, man. Oh, I forgot. I was like, oh my god, dude.
Sacrifice me, daddy. Like,
Oh god. Oh dear.
Yeah.
I wish I'd said that.
Yeah, I'm very funny, just saying.
Yeah. No, I was so into, like, I messaged my boyfriend and said, dude, Harrison Ford younger, like, not sure at the park. I'm so sorry, but he is stunning.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But no, you're right. I do think that kind of relationship moment, or that's a nice little moment there that shows. We obviously only hear about the backstory between the two in passing. Oh, I caught him trying to pickpocket from me one day, and we kept together. But that is some nice character development. They've come a long way from strangers on the street who, for better or worse, one tried to sort of take advantage of the other financially. Yeah, that sounded bad. One would assume. Cut. But yeah, they've come a long way. They've come a long way since then, and I think that is a really nice, meaningful moment. I like them as a pair.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm not really. It's funny because if you were to try and pitch this, essentially, like, we're going to pair a middle-aged man with a preteen boy, and that's going to be like the hero of your film. It kind of does sound a bit like, right, well, where are you going with that? But like, it works.
Yeah.
Like, once you put all the elements there, it does work.
There's not a massive relationship there, I don't think, in terms of the writing before you get to that moment. So, and it still like hits home. I think it's just a testament to how good their kind of chemistry is, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that and the jungle scene.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because they have their little card game there. It's really sweet.
So funny lines or interesting lines.
Right, Callum's got our line down, don't you?
Yeah, I've got a few. So
sure.
My favorite line, the one that really stuck out to me. And honestly, it was purely for the not so great delivery. It's when they're in the plane and Willie and they're about to jump out, and Willie says, "A boat, we're not sinking, we're crashing." It's mostly just because it's so hammy and over the top. But to be fair, I would argue that falls into one of those categories of lines that you see in films that are kind of, there's no way you can deliver that in a kind of a convincing way, because if you take it super like, the line itself is kind of comical, so if you deliver it seriously, that just removes all the humor for it, and if you go too hammy, it takes all the fear out of it. So like you can't do that convincingly, in her defense, but I love the line, I have to say.
I mean, there's another one in that sort of vein where Indy's like in the car and he's like, where's my gun, I burnt my fingers and I cracked a nail.
I literally wrote that one down as well. There was a couple of other ones that I wrote down when they're playing cards, and Short Round says to Indy, "You make me poor, you're no fun." I thought that's cute. And then my other favorite, this is the one that I remembered from childhood, so this is the one that stuck with me, is when Short Round's on the bridge going, "Look, strong words," and then goes for the bridge. I find that hysterical. I don't think that's meant to be as funny as I find it, but
I didn't really laugh at that. I was like, shit, don't die. Don't get eaten by crocodiles.
I've always found that absolutely fucking hysterical.
All Short Round's lines are brilliant, though, to be fair, aren't they? He's a good wee child actor.
Yeah,
and a good wee adult actor too. But
another one I quite like, is always kind of funny, is when Indy burns his foot on the brakes at the end of the cart scene, and he says, "Water, water, water." Then sees the tidal wave coming, and he's like, "Water, water, water." That's always a great laugh.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite is related to your favorite scene, Callum, in the jungle, where Willie says, "This place is completely surrounded. The entire place is crawling with living things." And Indy says, "That's why they call it the jungle, sweetheart." It's by far my favorite.
Yeah, it's great.
So screenplay for me, scoring. I think, this film like has a huge opening action scene and a huge like ending action scene, and then just a little bit of kind of screenplay in the middle with some action as well. So there's not an awful lot of writing here that's immensely engaging from like a character perspective compared to the other two movies, but it's still incredibly entertaining. You've still got to write these action scenes, so I would probably go like an 8.2 for me.
So just based on the fact that the kind of screenplay, the comedy throughout it kind of takes away from the dark stuff and the chemistry between the actors, what score should we say, Callum? Like, go quite high.
Yeah, I think 8 works well, because actually
8, perfect.
Even though it is quite action heavy throughout, as you say, these scenes do have to be written as well, and I think they are connected well. I do think the thing that would stop me going any higher than an 8 is as we were saying, stuff like the village scenes, I feel like that could have been handled better or not at all. And I think
too much exposition, maybe.
There's some exposition early on that I don't think connects with me as much as it should.
It's just a bit confused.
Yeah. So I think 8's a really good place to put it, but it's a very fun 8.
Yeah, because it's definitely not bad.
Yeah, definitely not.
Solid 8.
Yeah, solid 8.
Okay.
Because there's two of us, and like if we were arguing about decibels, it would just be such a. It would
I'll try and get one out of you at some point.
We'll see.
So acting then, I like the little bit from Harrison Ford when they arrive at the Indian village and Willie refuses to eat the food. And Harrison's like, you're insulting them and embarrassing me. But he's smiling while he does it, trying very hard not to make a scene. And I loved Ke Huy Quan at the end of the scene where he mimics Harrison Ford, like threading his fingers together with his hat on, with the fedora on. That was quite funny to just soften the situation. And it's also like a blink and you miss it moment because it's all kind of all in focus. So, you know, he's kind of in the background a little bit there. So it's quite an interesting little bit there for me.
Yeah, no, I like that. I noticed that as well, the sort of the mimicking, and it's very much, it's an example of a child's character. I mean, obviously it's to do with the acting, but it's to do, again, just slightly to do with the writing as well. Child character written well in the first place. Children tend to mimic the adults and stuff that influence them around them, and it's a nice little, it's just a nice little, you know, as you say, an imitation of in that way. I think that works really well. I love that scene. I think as well, for all the crap I was saying about the delivery of my favorite line being not so great, I actually think that Kate Capshaw as Willie Scott is pretty good throughout this for the most part, I would say.
Wonderfully annoying,
Yeah.
Just nailed it.
Wonderful. Yes, perfectly irritating. But no, like she is good. And I think there is something to be said for characters like that as well, because I know there's been some criticism for, and I said this, I must say, I messaged Sam when I was watching this as well. I was like, God, this woman's quite useless. And I think there is some criticism for characters that are quite useless in that way. But the thing is, not everyone can be an action hero.
No, she's a lounge singer.
Yeah, like not everyone needs everyone to be competent at everything. So I think, you know, you need characters like that sometimes. So I think that role fits this film well. And I think she plays it brilliantly, honestly.
Yeah, well, she does have that hero moment, doesn't she, when she punches the guy on the car.
Yeah, she does get her time to shine.
She's not totally that character, I would say.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, the so you've got, is it Mola Ram, who is played by, is it Amrish Puri? He's the priest that performs the sacrifices. I think he's a little bit, in some ways, he's a little bit over the top, but I think the role calls for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, again, I don't think you could have a role like this where you played that totally straight.
Well, the character's kind of a bit underwritten as well compared to the other villains in this franchise. So he has to kind of bring more to the actor as a thuggy leader.
Definitely. But I think he did a great job as well. And that you know, you kind of love to hate him. Like, it's
Absolutely,
just like so well,
he's torturing kids and stuff, so
totally. It doesn't take much, does it? So
yeah, we were saying like Harrison Ford's chemistry with Huy Quan is really great, but it's great with Willie as well. I thought like the 5-minute waiting gag between Indy and Willie, where they think they're going to each other's room, was fine, but I love the moment after Indy has that fight with a goon coming out of nowhere, and Indy just goes to Willie's room, and Harrison Ford is brilliant in his acting, like ignoring Willie, trying to look for a secret room. Better comedy there for me than the fairly witty dialogue before they're waiting for each other in their rooms. So
yeah, I would agree. I definitely prefer the second half.
Yeah, they have enough chemistry to be like a one night stand, and that's how they need to be. Like you couldn't picture them being together forever at all, because they just don't get along in that way.
No, absolutely not.
But as like a holiday romance, she's totally fine. Her chemistry's totally fine. Like, you can buy that.
Yeah.
I love the acting moment from Harrison Ford when Indy has drunk the evil blood and he's on the bed thing and he's contorting his body like crazy. And you don't really see Harrison Ford being allowed to do crazy stuff like that, and it's like a nice moment for him to see him do that, and it's really convincing. And the way he comes into like the light laughing is slightly unnerving. And I thought he was great in that moment, and he continues this creepy smile thing brilliantly in the second sacrifice scene. So it's a really brilliant like evil side to him that we very, very rarely see.
That contorting scene especially, that stood out for me because again, that's another one of those types of scenes where you can't do that half-heartedly. It's a sort of thing where, like, you know, if you're not an actor, if someone says to you, right, you're starring in my film and I need you to contort, like, you know, your insides are being, like, you are being possessed or whatever. If you don't give that 110% because you feel like you're going to look stupid, you are going to look stupid. You have to really commit to that sort of thing. Yeah. That is so hard to nail. And like, he just did it. It worked. Like, you don't look at that and think, that looks dumb. Like, it's good.
Yeah, you're like being silly.
Like, it comes across so well. So, you know, kudos to him for that. And you're right. I think the facial expressions in the scenes after that as well are part of it's to do with the fantastic lighting as well, and the way that that's bouncing off of people's faces. But like the facial expressions are really intense throughout the scenes that follow as well. He gives good crazy. So
he do.
Sam, any other acting moments you like?
I just thought Kiwi Kwan was really, really good at bordering line between annoying and cute.
Right.
Because I think like this is the thing we kind of contest with in our podcast a lot. Children are inherently annoying to me.
Same in this one as well.
But he was actually, I really, really liked him. Yes, he is a bit shrieky. Like, he shouts all his lines, but it was just, you know, it was just his character, so it worked. The one set of acting I would say was a bit questionable for me, and this is not fair, but there's this one child, and he's the one who gets possessed first, I guess, the one with the voodoo doll.
The Maharaja.
Yeah, the way he delivers some of his lines, it's a bit...
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. It's like he's putting on a high-pitched voice even though he's a child. He's like, well, you could go do this now, but make sure to turn left. I'm like, why are you talking like that? It's like, I know that's not how you talk. You know?
Yeah, it doesn't sound particularly natural.
No, it's like he's trying to give the Empress from Neverending Story. Like, you know what I mean? Just...
yeah.
Totally.
I'm like, you're not that role.
Yeah, your part's not that big either. It's just
it's just he doesn't come across like a child. Like, he's a child. I know he's meant to be like a child who's wise, but like, it comes across strange compared to other children who are so children-like. Well,
see, actually, it's funny you should say that, because there was a bit where they're locked in the cage with a couple of other children that are there, and they're like, "Oh, don't make me drink the blood or whatever. Don't drink the blood. You'll go into like the dark. Is it the dark sleep or something they call it?" And I was like, I don't know. I'm not getting like terrified of death from you. Like, I'm kind of getting blasé.
You're like, oh no.
Very matter of fact, just, you know, oh, don't do this. Like, it's just, I don't know, like, so, you can't be too hard on them, honestly, because they are working to an extent, they're bouncing off the other people around them and that. But some of the kids in this, I wouldn't say they're bad, but they're just not great.
Yeah, they're not as good as Short Round, that's it. And Harrison Ford's obviously amazing. So when you're comparing a child against Harrison Ford, they're never going to win. That's it.
No.
Yeah. It's not a fair battle.
Yeah, I think it's always a problem when, like, if the child actor is very central to your story, then, you know, that's always going to be a massive problem. But Short Round is amazing, so the film gets away with it with the other kid actors. So.
Yeah, because they're background children. Yeah,
so it's fine.
Yeah.
Favorite performance for me, I'm going Harrison Ford. How about you guys?
I think I would say the same, honestly. I think Sam's going to go for... I thought you were going to go for your wee Short Round, potentially, but...
No, dude, it's Harrison Ford. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Harrison Ford. Okay. Oh, I don't know.
He's got his shirt off in this one.
Yeah.
No, I really like... I have a lot of... I have a soft spot for that guy, especially now he's won his Oscar. Like, I really, as an actor, I'm really glad that he's kind of came back. I'm really happy for him. And I love their chemistry, but Harrison Ford, man, it's Harrison Ford, Calum.
He is very much the star. I don't think we could pick anyone else, really.
No one else could do that. No one else could do that role like him. Like, he's made for it.
So, acting score for me, I'm going to go with an 8.5.
We need to go higher than that, Calum.
Yeah, we do. I would go for a 9, to be honest. And again, the only thing for me that stops it being a 10 is some of the ones that are slightly off. I think overall, it's an easy 9 for me. Easy 9.
Yeah. I would say Harrison Ford's a 10, Short Round's a 10, genuinely. Even Willie Scott's a 10. But the other characters in the background are like 7s, so I think a 9 is fair.
What about the villain? Is he a 10 or a 9/8?
He doesn't really get to act very much. He's just acting evil. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So it's like
Yeah.
an 8, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
So,
9 overall.
9
I think
overall.
is great though.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I was like, I hope he's doing that, not us.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom gets 51.4.
Ooh. Out of what? What does that mean?
60. Whether it wins against Last Crusade or not.
Well, yeah, we shall see.
That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.